Slater Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Thanks for being here. The theme of today's show is that people are starving for the truth, but it's getting harder and harder to find it and figure it out. We're living in such a strange new world. I don't even know what to think right now. Southwest Airlines, you know, they canceled 1,000 flights on Sunday, like 800 flights on Saturday, a couple hundred more yesterday, I'm sure more today. A couple months ago, there was a massive cancellation with Southwest, and they blamed it on a technical glitch. And like, sure, fine, I don't think anyone thought anything of it. But then this cancellation, there's all these rumors that it's due to staff shortages because all the Southwest employees, or a bunch of them, walked out on the job against vaccine mandates. Right? That was the rumor. Right? Big mass walkout against vaccine mandates because the union for the pilots of Southwest Airlines, they're asking for a court to block the mandates. Now, I wouldn't have thought much of the rumor until we also got news that like the entire Jacksonville airport was essentially closed because there weren't enough air traffic controllers. You're like, well, hold on, what's going on here? Were they walking out too? Is that a whole thing against vaccine mandates as well? What's happening? The media sure wasn't saying that. The media reported on the FAA, and the FAA said it was because of weather. Weather? that only affects Southwest Airlines? What's that about? And then they're like, oh, there's active military training in the airspace, so we had to shut it down. I've never heard of that in my life. And then eventually they come out with, unexpected limited staff. Okay. So you're putting all these things together, and I don't know, like the order that you consumed the news yesterday as this was all coming in, but I'm taking it in, and I am so desperate. I'm desperately looking for some hope. And I don't know if it's just because I'm in California and I'm surrounded by such madness and hopelessness that I'm so desperate for hope. I want so badly for people to stand up in a unified way and say, no more. We're not doing it anymore. And I haven't seen any of that in this country. I've seen it in Europe. I've seen it in Australia. I haven't seen any of it here. So I'm looking at what's going on at Southwest, or what the rumors are, and I so badly want this to be true. I so badly want this to be an anti-vax mandate walkout. But I'm also cynical enough, hopeless enough to think, well, maybe this is just a bunch of people at Southwest and FAA employees getting the vaccine. And once you get the vaccine, you have to stay home from work for 2 days. So maybe that's what it was. Because I guess the FAA is 1 month away from when they need to get the vaccine. So everyone who didn't want it waited till the last minute, which was 4 days ago. So they got it, and now they had to be out for 2 days. So what happened? It's either a massive, don't tread on me, people are finally rising up against the tyrant and saying no more, or everyone just complied at the exact same time. Is it all these people are refusing to get the vaccine, or is it all these people all got it at the same time? Those are opposite things. What is it? I know what I want it to be. Quick sidebar, and I want to get back to the media part of this. But have you seen police arrest the 16-year-old girl? So we were talking about this on the radio show the other day. We were talking about vaccine mandates in California because once they're approved, Gavin Newsom already signed the executive order, all 5-year-olds need to get vaccinated, right? So I thought, well, like, let's say your kid doesn't get vaccinated and you send them to school. There she is. She's 16. She got it because she wasn't wearing a mask. She got arrested. But what do you, like, if you send your unvaccinated 12-year-old to school, what are they going to do? What, they have like some, like the gym coach standing up front, like keeping your kid from walking into the building? Okay, let's say you could get in the building. What are they going to do to your kid? Are they going to arrest your kid? Yes, there she is. That's 16-year-old girl. She videoed the whole thing. Completely legit. as calm and polite as could be. She's like, no, I'm just not going to wear a mask. And they arrested her. And surely they would for a vaccine mandate too. They can't arrest everyone. Isn't that what the Black Lives Matter protest showed us last summer? I'm not calling for violence. I'm just asking for enough people to say, all right, school, we're not doing it. We're not, forget it. But we won't. Only one girl did. It's a big country, one girl. Why is half of the school not going on strike? Like every school, half of the students should be not going until the mandates stop. But that's not happening. Everyone's complying. Southwest Airlines, did half of the flight attendants walk off? Or did just everyone get the vaccine at the same time? I don't know. I'm so desperate for people to stand up in a unified way. I admit I might be seeing it in places where it's not. Which brings me to my second point. Even if it was what I hoped for, you would never even know. You would never know because the government certainly wouldn't tell you, and the media wouldn't tell you, and big tech wouldn't allow it. These three forces together, we haven't even seen the beginning of the power that they have over you and your perception of reality and what's going on. We haven't even seen the beginning of it. We will look back on one day the Hunter Biden story and laugh, but notice that was just the first hint of it. I'm also at a cynical point now where I don't trust anything the government or media tells me about anything. And I don't think I'm alone with this, and I'm not happy about it entirely. I don't think this is a great, healthy position to have, but that's where we are. So when the FAA comes in and says, oh yeah, due to a combination of weather and military training, we had to shut the airport down. I hear that, I'm like, hey, you're lying. You're definitely lying. You're definitely lying. And they've done that to themselves. There's one last group of people that I'm holding out some hope for. Well, I shouldn't say. There's a lot of police officers who have not gotten vaccinated, and we're coming up on some deadlines there. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Another group of people is our military. I know two high-ranking guys in the military who applied for religious exemptions, and it's weird, like, if they get it, they still have consequences, like they'll be discharged, not dishonorably, but there's like something in between, like an administrative discharge or something like that, or they'll be like cut down on rank or something. It's like all these like consequences, even if they get the religious exemption, and if they're denied it, then they could be discharged dishonorably. Right now, 90% of the Navy is vaccinated, but that means 10% is not. Could you imagine if we lost 10% of the Navy just like that? I don't know when the date's coming up. I think it's the end of November when we're coming up. Imagine if we just lost 10% of our Navy. 72% of the Marine Corps is vaccinated. Now, that's a lot, but that means 28% is not. We're going to lose 28% of our Marines. 81% of the Army is vaccinated. That means 19% is not. So we're going to lose, 25% of our military overnight? Now, the Pentagon's line is that, if we're not all vaccinated, then that could hurt our military readiness. I don't know. When I see vaccine mandates, which lead to people quitting, won't that hurt military readiness? And whose fault is that? The Southwest story, what we're seeing today right now, has been an enlightening moment for me, and I hope it has for you as well. It's the unknown of it and the lack of clarity and clarifying that's going on about it has led me to realize really concretely that something really big could happen in this country and no one know about it. Because government, media, and big tech can collude together to prevent you from ever even hearing about it. And it would just be dismissed as rumors if it ever gets to you. And I suppose the border is a big example, a nice broad example, but I'm thinking even more specifically. But just real quick on the border, right? The Haitians, right? There were 20,000, whatever it was? 20,000 Haitians camped out at the border. They were there for 4 days before the media covered. They were there for 4 days. Did you know? I didn't know. Who would know? And the only reason the media ever covered it at all is because of that border agent whipping the guy, which never even happened. But they talked about it because it was an opportunity to make America look bad, so they ran with it. And then when it was sufficiently exposed as a lie, that was the end of that story. And now you hear nothing more about the border. Was it solved? Is it fixed? Are there no more Haitians there now? Or are there 10 times as many Haitians? I don't know. We'll never know. You will never know if they don't want you to know. That's an incredible power. Consider that. Let's say 1,000 Southwest employees, literally, let's say 1,000 Southwest employees went on strike against the vaccine. Like imagine this dystopian future, which is not that future, right? Let's say 1,000 Southwest employees go on strike, or 10,000, whatever it is. And they're like picketing, like there's no question about it. They're on strike against vaccine mandates. They got signs, they're picketing, they're on the tarmac. Let's say the media doesn't cover it. Okay. Pete Buttigieg says, "Oh, we have a. There's no disturbance. It's nothing. Slight. They had some term they used. What was the term they used? It was like something of limited staffing. That's right. We have limited staffing issues. That's all. No big deal." And you're like, well, no, there's 1,000 employees on strike. The flights are canceled. How can you not cover that? Oh, well, we are. It's just the weather. So it's not a story. It's just canceled because of the weather. Well, how can the weather only affect some planes and not all planes and some airlines and not all airlines? Well, it's actually a military exercise. That's the problem, right? And all these things are just believable enough. You have the government and the FAA feeding each other the party line and giving you the party line. And then you think, okay, well, Slater, it's okay because we got social media. Do we? Do we? When any picture that feeds through the algorithm is immediately censored as misinformation, right? It could be ticketed lines, and the Google algorithm will pick it up and know that it's a Southwest, and they'll boom, cancel it, delete it, and you won't be able to post it because it's misinformation. So it's just shut down by big tech. What a powerful menage a trois that is. And they can do that whenever they want to, and they'll do it. Like there could be a mass shooting, and it just like, you don't even know what happens. Media doesn't cover it, government dismisses it, big tech won't allow it. Truly, there could be a mass shooting, there could be, I don't know, there could be a terrorist attack, there could be anything you can imagine. And if all three of them decide that you don't hear it, that's it, it's gone. This is Sohrab Ahmari. He said this is the same corporate regime, he's talking about basically what I'm saying here, these three groups, that shut down houses of worship and strictly prescribed anti-lockdown protests, only to turn around and treat the 2020 race riots as perfectly salutary from a public health standpoint. The attendance was almost mandatory. This is the same regime that lay waste to some 40% of small businesses while allowing big box stores, and of course Amazon, to rake in mega profits. This is the same regime that demands that service workers mask permanently, even after the advent of vaccines, while blue politicians and celebs get to show their pretty faces. These are the people who are weaponizing the power they have against you. And why wouldn't they? Right? From their perspective, of course they would. You're spreading misinformation. You're dangerous. You're a domestic terrorist, mom, going to a school board meeting. YouTube just announced that they are demonetizing, which says no advertisements for certain videos, but this is just the first step towards eliminating. This is how they do it as part of the progress. They're demonetizing videos on YouTube that question, this is their words, the scientific consensus on climate change. That is mind-boggling right there. Anything that contradicts the scientific consensus. How dystopian is that? I feel like that story was a couple days ago. You maybe didn't hear it. And it just like washed over us because that's how numb we are to this. What do you mean you're deleting videos, deleting's next, that contradict scientific consensus? What are you talking about? There's a group called the American Principles Project. And they made this corny video about themselves or whatever. And it got deleted because of this part right here.
But you know what? Politicians are making it harder to be awesome. They're teaching our kids that America is evil, and instead of protecting our kids online, they're protecting the porn companies. Screen time's up, Bob. And now, they're trying to destroy our daughter's sports by allowing boys to compete against them. So what are we as parents to do to help stop this madness?
That's it. Deleted. Gone. Anti-trans. Deleted off YouTube. big government, big tech, big media, working together to collude against you. And in their mind, the fate of the world's at stake, right? The fate of the world with climate change and all this stuff. It's the fate of the world. And it's going to be harder and harder to get any true information. And it's going to be harder for anyone to see what's happening. I'll end with this clip from Pastor Paul Washer. This is back in 2008.
You must settle this in your mind. This is the one thing I want to say over and over. Do not believe. Down through history, you have a wrong idea of martyrdom and persecution. You think that these men were persecuted and martyred for their sincere faith in Jesus Christ. That was the real reason, but no one heard that publicly. They were martyred, and they were persecuted as enemies of the state, as child molesters, as bigots.
Enemies of the state. Today's version of that would be domestic terrorists. You're domestic terrorists. Back in the day, people thought that Christians were cannibals because of communion too, right? So Christians were persecuted as cannibals, child molesters, bigots, enemies of the state. And so will you today. True story. Mike Slater. Coming up next, we'll talk about one of the main holidays that yesterday was. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, hope you had a wonderful Columbus Day yesterday. On my radio show yesterday, we spent the entire 2 o'clock hour going over the true story of Christopher Columbus and his true motive for sailing west. Everyone has it wrong. And we talked about an amazing book called Columbus and the Quest for Jerusalem by Carol Delaney. It's absolutely fantastic, and we did a review of that yesterday, 2 o'clock on the radio show, if you want to go back and check that out. But yesterday, Columbus wasn't the only holiday yesterday. It was also National Coming Out Day. And it was also International Girl Child Day. That's a real thing, girl child. And they did this, they just bombarded the day with holidays, right? It's been Columbus Day forever. And then they're like, oh no, it's Indigenous Peoples Day. And then that didn't really take off. So they're like, I'll throw something gay in it. So it's coming out, and they're like, throw like a feminist thing. And then, right, that way, like we're just bombarded with them, and we don't even know what day it is anymore, and therefore it's nothing, it's just Monday. All to make Christopher Columbus disappear. But I want to focus on this segment on International Girl Child Day. Like, that's literally what it's called. Or International Day of the Girl Child. I think that's what it is. International Day of the Girl Child. Doesn't that sound, like, what is that? Sounds horrible. That's like a misogynist came up with that name. Hello, my little girl child. I have a 3-year-old girl child. Who talks like that? Girl child. All right, I want to start off with this person right here. It's Dr. Jessica Taylor to you. She says, she's a professor, I think all girls should be given the strong counter narrative from an early age as possible that they do not have to ever have children or get married, and that their lives can just be for them. This is totally missing at the present. Weird. I feel like that's the only message that girls get for their entire life. So here's this woman saying, man, wouldn't it be great if we could really teach girls that they don't have to get married, they don't have to have children, they can just go work and live life for themselves. We really need to get that message out there because it's totally missing. And I look at this and say, oh no, that's the only thing that girls are told. How can we be so different? How can we have totally different perspective? She thinks that message doesn't exist, and I think that's the only message that exists. That's how different planets we're living on right now. I see a girl's, and you tell me, I don't know, I hear a girl's entire life. It's all about going to college, getting a career, traveling the world, right? It's all about yourself, right? I'm an independent woman. I believe the line goes, all the women who independent, throw your hands up at me, I believe is how that goes from a one Beyonce. The watch I'm wearing, I bought it. The house I live in, I bought it. The car I'm driving, I bought it. I depend on me was the anthem circa 2008 or whatever year that song came out. But in that, like, here's this woman saying, oh, it's totally missing at present. Have you heard any Beyonce songs? I think that's like the only thing she does. I'm pretty sure we pump this narrative, this feminist narrative into young girls as early as they can open their eyes. We talked about a couple weeks ago, or months ago, we talked about the newest Cinderella on the Amazon version. It's a feminist version of Cinderella where like the prince is a bumbling idiot and he says something like I want you to be my wife. And she goes, I don't need a man. I need my business. I need to go start my business. Dresses by Ella, and she goes off to the big city. And it's like, what crap is this? So this girl's like, lives can just be for them. Girls just are totally missing that message. What are you talking about? Girls can go their entire life and never hear the message that it's okay to just, let alone it should be good, to just be a mother and a wife. That's the narrative that's looked down upon. The counter narrative of the day, of the feminist day, is to get married and have kids at a young age. That's the counter narrative. I want to play a clip here of Blake Masters. I know nothing about this guy. I've never heard of him. He went to Stanford Law School, met Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, of course, the founder of PayPal, a bunch of other companies, who's Republican-ish. He spoke at the Trump convention in 2016. So this Masters guy is close with Thiel. He's the president of the Thiel Foundation, and he worked on Trump's transition team, whatever that even really means. But the point is, he's running for senator in Arizona right now, which is pretty cool, in 2022. So here he is with Dave Rubin talking about family.
In my announcement video, I had a controversial line. It was amazing that it was even controversial. I would have thought it was common sense. But I said, you ought to be able to raise a family in America on one single income, which...
Doesn't that mean you hate women or something?
That's what the Democrats said. They attacked me for being sexist. And it's like, I didn't say anything sexist at all. It's like you used to be able to raise a family on one income in this country. Something happened, like globalization happened. Maybe it's a complicated story to tell, but you can't do it anymore. And I think that's a problem. And maybe, a husband and wife, maybe the wife wants to go to work and the husband wants to stay at home and raise the kids. I generally think it's good if someone stays at home and raises the kids. Or maybe you want to have two people, work, and that's fine. That should be a choice. You should be able to afford to raise a family, So I didn't say you couldn't choose. I just said, wouldn't it be nice if we were more prosperous? Right. But that's not the way so many, even people on the right, have come to think. It's more like, well, think about all the GDP. If we send the husband to work, and you send the wife to work, or husband, whatever, you send two workers, and then you've got to get the nanny, and now you've got three incomes. And look at all this GDP that we're creating. Right. Well, it's like, what if that's not as good for the kids? Wouldn't it be nice to have the choice? But apparently not.
Twitter put a warning up on that video. They do that now? They put a warning. It says, heads up, conversations like this can be intense. That's literally what it says. And he wrote back, he's like, yeah, trigger warning. This guy wants families to be able to afford to live. Now, of course, what he said there has to be partisan. It's got to be sexist. It's got to be feminist, right? But it's not even a women's issue, right? What if we ever frame something as a kid's issue? We should have a society where there's an expectation, or at least an option, but certainly an expectation for kids or for parents to be home, one parent, at least for 5 years of a child's life. It's the 5 most important years. And a parent stays at home and raises their kid, but we don't. Now, it's especially hard to talk about this if you live in a place that's very expensive. I live in San Diego. It's ridiculously expensive. And people use that as an excuse, speaking vaguely, to protect the innocent. We know a couple people here in San Diego who they shack up with their very many year boyfriends. Right? They've been dating for multiple years, like 4 or 5 years. And they do it's just so expensive here. No ring, no intention. Many years they've been dating. We got women in their late 20s, 30s, still dating. One couple, we know, they have a kid. They're not together, they live together. right? So they live together, they're not together, they have a kid together, but they're not together. And he goes out almost every night and acts as if the kid's not even his. And they're living together like I'm horrified by the entire situation here. And everyone in these situations is miserable. Which is like, whatever, like live your miserable life, but you gotta drag your kid through it. Get your life together. Everything's so screwed up. But happy International Girl Child Day. I read a thought-provoking thing yesterday. We'll end with this. This person said, the popularity of some things is often a sign of how utterly starved people are for anything like that thing, rather than the thing itself being particularly good. Does that make sense? So the popularity of certain things isn't a assessment on the thing that's popular. It's more of an assessment on people being starved for something else that's real. But instead we get focused on the fake, the cheap substitute. And he's absolutely right. Porn is popular. It's because people are starved for intimacy. Video games are popular. And it's because people are starved for agency, like control. Because life's not as easy as a video game where you press a button and a thing happens. TV shows are popular because people are starved for something interesting to happen in their lives. What's better, watching Friends or having friends? Self-help is popular because people are starved for solutions to all the other things that they're starved for. The internet's popular because people are starved for meaningful conflict. So they settle for a cheap substitute. Drugs are popular because people are starved for the divine. And the pattern goes like this. The pattern is things that are complicated, risky, and uncertain. We call these things life, are replaced with similar-ish things that are simple, predictable, and safe. We call this fake life. Video games, porn, TV. So we have real life and fake life. Real life is complicated, risky, and uncertain. Parenthood, getting married, being married, it's complicated, it's uncertain, it's difficult. So instead of doing those things called real life and being an adult, we're going to replace it with something simple, predictable, and safe. And it's guaranteed to make you miserable. But at least it's not complicated. At least it's comfortable. It's comfortable in the moment. And maybe more than anything, that is going to be the death of us in America. Comfort. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word. Slater Crusaders, the older I get, the more I realize that it's less about the person in office. It's less about the president. And it's more about who he surrounds himself with and who he appoints to these different bureaucratic machines that live on beyond the 4 years of the presidency and even transcend law, the law, like transcend Congress, as we see with the CDC and as we see with, with eviction moratoriums and OSHA now with these vaccine mandates. These bureaucracies and who lead them, those are the people who really matter. But who the heck are those people? We didn't vote for them. We don't even know who they are. Luckily, someone is doing the work for us. Tom Jones from the American Accountability Foundation. Tom, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about
glad
these
you're
nominees.
Here. Yeah, as we said, super important. Let's start off with the communist, because this is the one that was most. I mean, they all perhaps are. what was she in charge? Like, oh yeah, a comptroller or something. Who's this person? You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, so it's kind of this boring name, comptroller of the currency, but it's super important. This woman is going to be the chief bank regulator in the United States. Like, this is the woman who's going to tell our banks how to operate. And she literally studied scientific communism in college. Like, I can't make this stuff up. She went to Moscow State University on a Lenin scholarship. And this is the kind of people that the Biden administration is digging up. And we know what we're going to get from her. We're going to get an attitude that's hostile to the free market. We're going to get an expansive government, and we're going to get somebody who's peeking into your bank accounts to find out what you're doing. All on top of that, she's looking to kill cryptocurrency because that allows people to engage in financial transactions without the government looking over your shoulder. So, digging up somebody literally from the Soviet Union to run our banking system should be really troubling to Americans.
Let me just give her one chance, okay? Benefit of the doubt. Maybe she's like Thomas Sowell, right? And like he was a deep studier of Marxism, first a believer in it, and then like repentant, but still like studied it to learn. Is there any chance
This woman is still kowtowing to the Chi-Coms in Beijing just a couple years ago. So it's not like she was like, wow, I saw communism firsthand and it's terrible. No, she's like, I saw communism firsthand and here's some things we could learn. I mean, she's become famous for this comment she made about how it was great back in the USSR because they didn't have wage gaps between men and women. Yeah, because everybody was dirt poor digging up potatoes on forced labor farms. Yeah, there were no wage gaps there because nobody had wages.
Crazy. All right, let's do Department of Education.
Yeah, this woman's going to be a real radical. I think, we've seen a lot of abuses in this kind of Me Too movement where we're running to just throw people under the bus because we feel like we need some kind of accountability, and we're completely denying due process. And look, these are really fraught situations, and they need a cool, introspective examination of the facts associated with each case. Lamont she's going to create a situation where young men get run over, and we believe every accusation without giving an examination, without giving people a chance to plead their case. That's the fundamental aspect of the American judicial system, is you get your due process, you get to confront your accuser. She's going to destroy that, and she's going to destroy young men's lives. So we, again, should be really concerned. But this is the kind of picks you get from this administration. You get, communists from the USSR and retreads from the Obama administration who were terrible then and are going to be worse now.
I misspoke. She's at the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. Is that her job?
I think it's the Office of Civil Rights at Education. Yeah, it's going to be terrible though.
All right, who's Tracy StoneManning?
Oh, she's literally a terrorist. Again, this is one of those ones where you're kind of like, did they pause? This is a woman who was actively part of the Earth First movement. If you're not familiar with these radicals, these were guys who would go into forests where they were logging and drive railroad spikes into trees. And like, if you don't know what that is, you're kind of like, well, okay, that seems kind of like vandalism. But what would happen is loggers would go down and cut down those trees. The chains on the chainsaw would hit these spikes, and they literally break the chains and cut off arms, maim people. These trees would go to sawmills. The blades in the mills would break, and there'd be these grisly incidents. This was a woman who was involved in this, and the Biden administration knew about this. All of this had come out when she had gotten positions in Montana state government, but the Biden administration went and put her up anyway. And unfortunately, since she worked for John Tester put his shoulder into it, buttonholed his colleagues, and pushed her through the process, and she got confirmed. But again, this is, Ted Cruz kind of summed it up, I think, really well when he summed up the Biden administration as boring but radical. And really kind of the Sleepy Joe boring, kind of bumbling around stuff is there. Where the radical really comes in is these kind of folks that are what I like to call the trigger pullers of big government. These are the folks that are at the pointy end of the spear, growing government, restricting our freedom. Tracy StoneManning's unfortunately a great example of that.
Is there any, I'm trying to go back even just a couple decades when you talk about other administrations who put some more moderate people in there. Is there anyone that you've seen who's like a sensible, moderate, someone that maybe even a squishy Republican would put in there? Like, is there anyone in there who a Mitt Romney would have nominated who's not crazy radical, can maybe either go both ways?
I really don't think so. And I think the reason for that is, sensible, moderate folks don't bring a whole bunch of crazy radicals with them to implement the details of their agenda. So, let's take Merrick Garland, for example, who I think is, one of the most troubling. You look at his deputies and his assistant attorney generals, these are people who are lifelong leftists who are going to implement a radical agenda, whether it's open up voting to illegal aliens or critical race theory, or, sicking the FBI on parents who are upset about their schools. He looks like a moderate, but you don't hire Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark if you're a Mitt Romney moderate. I mean, he's even not that bad.
The one hope I potentially have was, and give me the full backstory on this because I didn't follow it like I should have, was this David Shipman guy who was nominated head of alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, who was very radical. We talked to David Harsanyi about him. But then he dropped out. So tell me about him, and then why did he drop out?
Yeah, so there's a couple reasons he dropped out. But he was extremely radical. The reason he was nominated was because he was a radical. He was a guy who worked for Mike Bloomberg, Gabby Giffords, really the cutting edge of the gun control movement, who want to ban a large variety of sporting rifles. He basically he did want to ban every AR-15. There's a couple things that derailed his nomination. One, the guy just kind of like vomited all over himself during his hearing. He literally couldn't explain what an assault rifle was. This is the most important question in the gun control debate. You could see it coming from 1,000 yards away, and this guy couldn't answer that question. Just looked like a clown. His career was in firearms regulation, so that was particularly troubling. But what we ended up uncovering, we talked to a lot of his coworkers. He had made extremely problematic racist comments. He literally told an African-American coworker in his Detroit office while looking at exam results, wow, there's a lot of black agents who passed this exam. They must have been cheating. That stuff really, I think, helped bring down his nomination, in addition to the serious problems he had with Angus King in Maine and Joe Manchin in West Virginia. He was just a terrible nominee. But what we've been seeing throughout this process is, the Biden administration does a terrible job vetting the personal histories of these individuals. They do a great job vetting them to make sure they're radicals, to make sure they have a leftist agenda. But when they, look into the backgrounds, it's very superficial. We've done a number of investigations where we'll call individuals and ask them about a nominee, and I'll be like, well, hey, did you tell all this to the FBI? And they'll be like, what are you talking about? I never talked to the FBI. Wow. So it's problematic on multiple levels.
That's interesting with the ATF guy, because he got like Grudent, which makes way more sense. I bet he still would have gotten nominated if he didn't know what an AR-15 was. I don't think that would have stopped it. A combination of both those, right? But the racism thing is probably what did it more than anything.
I think so.
Who's the worst / who's still to come? Are they done? I mean, he's been president for almost a year, right? So
there's a lot to come. Look, I think the worst, without question, is Merrick Garland, because he's bringing in a bunch of radicals, but the guy literally comes with a army of lawyers and police officers. So, hey, maybe the guy at BLM's kind of terrible, but she's not going to sue you into oblivion and drag you off to jail. Merrick Garland's going to sick the FBI on you for going to your kid's school board meeting and demanding records and trying to hold the leaders of your community accountable. So, that's really problematic. And, a lot of the top spots at DOJ have been filled out, but the agenda that DOJ and the FBI are going to try to implement, whether it's an election reform or policing folks being engaged in the local school board, is really have a chilling effect on democracy and is really going to be problematic for kind of the traditional values that most Americans have.
Really good point. Correct me if I'm wrong with Merrick Garland. Wasn't he the guy that Obama nominated to be Supreme Court judge? Right. So he was like the grand moderate, he was like the token, like, hey guys, let's come together and we can all agree on this guy to be a Supreme Court nominee. And now we see him in action.
Exactly. He was like as milquetoast as they come. Everybody's like, this guy is a complete nothing burger. We shouldn't at all be upset. He gets in there and again brings these leftists in with him that are implementing this radical agenda. And it's, look, he's a bright guy. This is not happening by accident. They're not suddenly like sneaking out with the letterhead at night and drafting memos. They're doing it with his direction and acquiescence. And that's what you're going to really be troubled by.
Yeah, and he was almost on the Supreme Court. That's amazing.
Exactly.
AmericanAccountabilityFoundation.com, AmericanAccountabilityFoundation.com, and BidenNoms.com, nominees. Tom Jones, great work. Appreciate you, sir.
Hey, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful day. I want to come back and we'll highlight someone who's running for office in Florida and talk about Florida, what's going on down there. Let's make America more like Florida, right? True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, there's no doubt we got a lot to do to fix this country, but one of the must accomplished is to take back the Senate and to take back the House. So we got to start picking off some seats, and we're always going to encourage and highlight and celebrate some people who are fighting the good fight, and hopefully we can get them over the finish line. One of those people is running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida for Congress. This is the district that's just to the west of Fort Lauderdale. Carla Spaulding. Ms. Spaulding, how are you today?
Fantastic. How are you? Thanks for having
Wonderful.
me.
And I got to tell you, I was shocked that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is still in Congress. I haven't heard from her in years. The only time we even know her is because she headed the Democratic Party for a while. So I got a couple questions about her real quick. And of course, we'll talk about you. You're more important. But how did she ever become the head of the Democratic Party? And then what happened? Why is she no longer the head of the Democratic Party?
Well, that's a very good question. We're still wondering the same reason why she's still there, the head of the Democratic Party. They nominated her there, and she's there to protect the squad and all the Democrats that are in office. And it's quite clear that she's one of the main ones that is anti-America, anti-Israel, and sides with everything that goes against America and our values.
It's so bizarre that she can still be there. Like she could still be in Congress. You think she would have been laughed and just disgraced out of Congress forever by now? Tell me about your district and how they can keep voting for her.
Well, great. My district covers majority of Broward and the northern Miami, and therefore it's a district that is, I would say that it's a combination of Caribbeans, Blacks, Caucasians, and also, the Jewish community. We're very happy that I'm running, and we do have the support of the locals, and we're poised to win this election in 2022. As we came close in 2020, we defeated her, all of early voting, the day of election, and you just came shy of the mailing ballot. You know how that is.
Yeah. Tell me about your life in Jamaica and why you came to America.
Well, my life in Jamaica, I went to all-girl Catholic school. My mother was a police officer there and also had her own commercial school, which is like a secondary school. We had a pretty good life, very religious at that time and still is today. But most importantly, my mother came here legally, and she brought us here, and that's where I ended up joining the United States Navy. I proudly served in the Navy, and now I'm a registered nurse. So, we took that oath to stand up and defend this country against all enemies, including domestic and foreign. And we have to do something right now because we will not have a country with this administration by 2024.
What are your thoughts on critical race theory?
Just like it's actually one of the most racist theory I've heard of. It's very clear that's how they're trying to divide this country, divide us between blacks, whites to hate each other. And this is not what America's about. I didn't come here for that. It was not like this before. And Americans have to stand up and really eliminate, well, I wouldn't say eliminate, but vote them out. We have to vote with those people. We just cannot allow our country to continue to do this critical and teach our children to hate each other, and most importantly, to brainwash them. And that's my concern of what they're doing right now.
Carla Spaulding, where do people learn more about your campaign?
They can learn more about the campaign at Carla Spaulding for Congress, forcongress.com. I'm also on Twitter and on Instagram, Carla_Spaulding, and just Instagram, I'm in the white dress. We have a few Carla Spaulding, but they're actually not me.
Wonderful. Carla, wish you the best of luck. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Let's get Debbie Wasserman Schultz out of office. Like, who? Never ever heard of her in like a couple of years. What is she even still doing there? That's ridiculous. Goodness gracious. People are starved for the truth, and it's hard to find it these days. And that was the theme of the show today. And I'm super grateful you're here and we can find it together. True story. Mike Slater. We'll do it again tomorrow. Spread the word.